Hey, football fans, welcome back to another episode of Lions Latest, the show where we gather around to talk about the greatest team in the NFL, the Detroit Lions. I'm your host, Bryan Hanes, and we actually kind of have a free agent special today, so let's get into the video. But beforehand, if you're not already, please consider going down and hitting subscribe. If you do that and you hit the bell, you'll be notified on all videos we put out here Monday through Friday, giving you all the new updates surrounding the Lions this offseason. So if you're a Lions fan or you're just an NFL fan looking to stay updated, please consider going down and hitting subscribe. But with that being said, let's jump straight into our first topic today, where we are talking about guys that are leaving, but really it's out of everyone who's leaving, who can we least afford to let go right now? And I feel like there's like many different answers. I don't think there's one correct answer if I'm being honest. But after I kind of looked at the list, see the guys who are going to be possibly going, there's one specific position where it just feels the worst to be losing guys right now. And I feel like this year too, this offseason is the first time since we've had some real success in recent years that we're going to have to say goodbye to some real playmakers, some real guys who have been around since nearly the beginning of the success. So it is going to be tough to let some of these players walk, and it's going to mean we're going to have to address a lot of roster spots. But I think whether it's a starter or a depth piece person, we any team rarely wants to create these holes, so we really do have to pick our poisons here. And out of the upcoming free agents, who can we least afford to lose? Well, for me, it's between three guys. Um, and two are more important than the other, but all in all, three guys: Amik Robertson, Avante Maddox, and Jake Bates. Now, when I say that Jake Bates isn't nearly as important as the other two guys, it's because I think Jake Bates is already going to get re-signed. He's got an exclusive rights free agency, so it means the Lions basically have first dibs on him anyways, and then it's a move that I'm pretty confident the Lions are going to make. So ultimately, I don't know. Well, let's be fair. It is worth noting that Bates is kind of having was the lone ERFA to not get re-signed back in January, which means he's due for an extension as well. But let's be honest, he had a bit of a down year in terms of just missing some of his field goals. Some of his kickoffs were all right, but I still think he's the hometown guy, right? Not really hometown guy, but played for the Panthers. Mr. Brick Salesman. Fans love him. I see him coming back. For Maddox, I think he's going to most likely start at the beginning of next season if we don't draft slash sign a better safety. Then I feel like we're not going to the draft for a safety. It might be a free agent signing, but there's a good chance that Maddox is going to have to start due to our stars being injured for the beginning of the season next year. Or we don't even know what the deal with Kirby Joseph is. We just know for sure Brian Branch is at least going to have to sit. So having him would be cheap. It would fill a huge gap in the safety room. That would be an excellent guy to keep as well. But let's talk about Amik Robertson, because this is the guy I truly think we can't afford to lose right now. And we've talked about him quite a lot on this channel already. He had a down 2025 season after a really great 2024 season. But it's worth remembering that this year he got shuffled around a ton due to injuries. The initial plan for him was to make Robertson, a complete pair with Ennis Rakestraw and that nickel, the slot corners, right? But Rakestraw, as we know, suffered that camp injury. That was the worst. That was just the worst. And never really saw any regular action. So that left Robertson as the lone nickelback, a role that he would not maintain for long, given the fact that Terrion Arnold and DJ Reed were both getting injured throughout the season. So they had to move him to the outside. Give the guy credit. The secondary plan changed like every single week in the season after our guys got injured. So I choose to believe that this 2024 version of Amik Robertson is way better than the unsured 2025 level where he was all over the place every single week, right? If anything, we get him on a buy low option, which, if the market doesn't covet him a big increase, we can get away with paying him maybe a little less, maybe a more team friendly option. I just say let the guy get comfortable and let him play his position. I think we're going to see a lot more success out of him, and especially with how we've seen the secondary the last 2 years, injuries, depth not being great in the secondary. I think that is a position we really do need to hold on to, and I think Amik Robertson wants to be in Detroit. So give the guy his position, let him play. I think that's the guy we need to hold on to the most. But of course, Avante Maddox, Jake Bates, also great options. Now, moving to the second topic of today, I think we've definitely talked about this guy before, but as we've mentioned, according to overthecap.com, Detroit is projected to be $10 million over the cap. Obviously, they're going to rework some contracts and make that a little easier, but as it is, that is what it says. So we're going to have to do some roster maneuvering as well, and there's going to be some guys moving into free agency. But who's the guy that we need to start targeting? Who's the guy we need to start looking at? I think the big position that we're going to need to address besides our secondary and offensive line as well is going to be the pass rush. I think that this has been the topic of many discussion for the last, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years. Get the guy beside Hutch, and I think it's we're at a point now where it's more important than ever, especially because Mohammed is probably leaving, right? In the past season, the Lions were tied for fourth in the NFL in sacks with the Vikings at 49, which honestly isn't a bad stat, but the majority of the stats came from one of two guys, Aiden Hutchinson or Al-Qadim Muhammad. And that's good for them. But you don't want one guy soaking up all the sacks because that means there's something wrong with the depth on the defensive line, right? And Muhammad is likely to leave, so we're going to have to fill that void. If Lions general manager Brad Holmes can re-sign Muhammad to a multi-year deal, that would be great. But like we've mentioned, his rate's going to probably go up. He's about there in age too, where he wants to maximize a contract. It's probably not going to work for us. But even so, we still need to address the problem in free agency after seeing the Marcus Davenport experiment just go down in flames over the last 2 years. There's going to be some options available for the Lions anyways, thankfully, including a guy we've talked about before in veteran AJ Epinesa, a player from the Bills. So I tricked you with New York, but he's a player from the Bills, and he's the kind of player that shouts, I want to go somewhere where I'm getting the most use out of me. And while some fans right now from Detroit want to see us go with Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Phillips, Max Crosby, right? Let's be honest, guys. It's a great storyline. It makes for good reading, but I doubt the Lions are going to want to break the bank for these guys when there are other options, right? This is where Epinesa comes into play. The 27-year-old pass rusher would be a extremely solid option and addition to our already pretty stellar rush unit, despite having a kind of down 2025 season. Ebenezer saw his role change in the past season in Buffalo because they added Joey Bosa onto their squad, who's another guy that Lions fans would love to see despite his age at 30. And honestly, I'd love to see Joey Bosa, but we're not talking about him right now. Ebenezer had 12 quarterback pressures, 9 quarterback hits, and 2.5 sacks across 16 games with only 2 starts this season, which is honestly, it's a far cry from his previous years where he averaged 6.3 sacks per season with the Bills, had 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery, despite his role as a reserve this year, though. So, honestly, he was a backup, really. He was a reserve guy, and he still had pretty outright stats, man. To me, this is screaming a player who's got plenty left in the tank at his age and is being forced to be a reserve because of other people on the team. Now, you could say, yeah, it's a David Montgomery situation, but I don't think it's like that. I think this is a guy who knows he could still be a starter in another team, and honestly, but he's not. He's not at the elite level, but he's not at the underwhelming level. He's at a level where he could just be a solid starter, and he could definitely rack up those stats if you give him the opportunity to. And I think that's what the Lions kind of present him in that option, right? So the only bad thing, he wasn't great in the run this season. He sported a 48.6 grade. He ranked 105th among 115 eligible edges. But to be fair, when you only give him a little bit of play time, some of those bad things can seem a lot worse than they actually are. But for what it's worth, Muhammad also had a 59.3 run defense grade this past season with us, and he made up for it with his pressures and sacks, something I have a feeling Epinesa would be able to do. Over the cap has his valuation at $4.3 million. Therefore, if his market value ends up being around $4 to $6 million, there should be no excuse why the Lions can't go and grab him, or at least go and try to grab him. He fits the size, with 6'6", 260 pounds. It's kind of what Detroit wants in an edge right now, alongside the very agile, quick Aiden Hutchinson. He has starting experience, and he would be an immediate upgrade over Marcus Davenport, in my humble opinion. I think this is a great one. I think it's worth renoting right now. I think we talked about him in preseason this past summer. I think now is the perfect time to go and grab him, and it sounds like he might be wanting to get out of Buffalo as well. For our third topic, we're talking about a guy leaving us, not so much leaving another team, but one of our veteran defensive tackles who is very likely to leave this season. And I don't know that I'm entirely upset about it. So we know Al Muhammad, DJ Reader, Roy Lopez, Marcus Davenport are all hitting the market. I really want to keep Roy Lopez. I'd love to keep Al Muhammad. No, I don't really care for Marcus Davenport, as you may know. DJ Reader is just kind of one of those odd ones, right? So losing any of these guys is obviously, well, besides Marcus Davenport, because he didn't play at all, whatever. It's going to hurt Calvin Shepard's plan for a bounce back in 2026, but specifically losing Reader would be a blow to the team in terms of veteran presence on that defensive line front, right? Reader joined the Lions back in 2024. He was the defensive captain for the Bengals before he joined us, and he honestly had a down season this year. Despite playing in all 17 games for us, he never recorded a sack. He had only 2 stuffs this year for runs. He was expected to be one of the team's best run stoppers this year, and we were honestly relying on him a ton in the preseason. But instead, the Lions, we let a bunch of teams run all over us for the back half of the season, right? Reader has been linked to his former team, though, the Bengals, this offseason. Cincinnati's always in need for some reinforcements on defense. This is true. And Reader's got postseason experience with the Bengals. He was on the Super Bowl run with them in 2021 where they lost to the Rams. And I mean, he could be a key contributor to them. He could go back and rekindle that fire. But I really don't think he's doing anything fancy or special for us now. And I think he's taken up a bunch of money, right? So at the end of the day, would this be somebody you guys are mad about leaving? This is honestly a question. Let me know in the comments. Would you be incredibly upset if DJ Reader was to leave? Honestly, I'm pretty indifferent about it. I would love for him to stay and help out the younger guys in the unit, especially our former first-round draft pick, Tylik Williams, who also had a pretty underwhelming season. But his production, Reader's production was so underwhelming this season that I'm not even sure he's the right option for us right now. And I'm not sure that Dan Campbell's convinced he is going to make a difference next year after, this was supposed to be his year to make a difference. I'm not sure. I think we're honestly going to part ways with him, maybe save some money. And I don't know how we're going to address that. Maybe re-sign Roy Lopez, who was honestly doing better and getting paid way less. I don't know. It's a tough one, guys, but I think at the end of the day, we wanted him to be the run stuffer, and he didn't do much of what we wanted him to do. So I think it might be time for a change. You guys let me know. I'll obviously update you guys with what I find out. Finally, Miles Frazier. So the guard position. Now, while offensive tackle has been the big thing to look for right now, and, probably going to be our first round pick, we still need help on the interior, if not more help on the interior. And I think in particular, we're going to get it from Miles Frazier, right? He was considered a steal when we got him in the 5th round of last year's draft. He was a rookie. His rookie season, though, was derailed by that injury. He immediately suffered a knee injury in the offseason program, and that honestly, it was a scare, but we didn't think it was going to affect us nearly as much as we did once all these other injuries started in the guard position. When he returned in November, too, he was pretty ineffective. He posted a 26.4 overall grade following 5 quarterback pressures on 26 snaps, according to Pro Football Focus, which is not the kind of stat you want to see coming back to the game. And part of the reason the Lions were drawn to Frazier, the draft, is his performance in the pass protection, right? Why he was so good at protecting his quarterback, which is honestly why we were so probably turned off when he didn't do it when he came back, right? He played right guard at LSU. He was the opposing pass rushers rarely got even close to pressuring the quarterback there. He allowed 13 pressures and no sacks on 545 pass blocking snaps in his final collegiate season with LSU. The only issue that people had to fear with him was lack of athleticism. Still, Frazier posted a 9.33 relative athletic score, or RAS, at last year's combine and had the look of a mauler that could clear the way in the run game for the Lions while doing a great job at passing as well. And he's more used to zone schemes when he was at LSU, but honestly, he also had 109 snaps and gap schemes, which could help him as he transitions into Drew Petzing's form of offense. As we know, he loves the gap-heavy schemes. Big run guy, loves the run game. A bigger case for Frazier rebounding involves his chance to go back to his natural position. There's obviously talk about Tate Ratledge manning the right guard spot, but there's also rumors that he is going to go and take that center position. According to Dan Campbell, they spoke to him December and they admitted that it's still a possibility. But please do not get your hopes up about this. I feel like that scenario is just very unlikely to happen because, unlike last year, we actually have a full off season to look for our new center, and I'm hoping that this front office will go and get an already proven guy, so we don't have to have a Graham Glasgow. Well, he's a serviceable backup kind of year, right? I want to have somebody I don't have to be worried about every single week. The other evidence that Frazier will be entering the offseason program completely recovered from his knee injury is the fact he got cleared. It's huge, and that's going to be really big for him. So while his athleticism may be an issue on tape, it could have been a bigger one as he managed the pain. He was going through an injury, giving him a chance now to show his true potential when he's fully healthy this offseason, right? Because honestly, we are going to need him to step up. We can get that first round tackle guy that we really want. We can get the center in free agency, the proven center, but the guard position was something that we still kind of struggled with this year. And I think if we aren't good on both fronts, it's going to be another disaster for Jared Goff in that interior pass rush. We're going to have to wait and see what the front office does, but I think Miles Frazier is due for a comeback next season, and you guys can let me know what you think because we are out of time today. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Lions Latest. If you made it to this point in the video, tell me what you think about the Miles Frazier bounce back, and who do you think the Lions can least afford to lose this free agency offseason. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss a single video here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.